I just confuse English with Spanish. Okay, cool.
Sí,
Listo, Andy.
ya. Listo. Vamos, ya. Hola a todos, muy buenos días. Hubo ahí. Les agradecemos mucho la espera a quien de nuestro ponente el día de hoy. Él es investigador y consultor en las áreas y gobernanza, 25 años de experiencia trabajando en los actores de desarrollo y comunidades del sur de Asia. En 2015 trabaja en la interfaz de la política, la academia y la práctica en temas interdisciplinarios relacionados con la tierra, tales que se usan con el uso, la administración y la tecnología de la tierra. Pranab organiza anualmente el India Land and Development Conference en la plataforma de convergencia de tierras más grande del sur de Asia, que promueve conversaciones interdisciplinarias. Es asesor de instituciones de políticas territoriales y es miembro invitado del Comité Ejecutivo de la Misión India Verde del Ministerio de Medio Ambiente, Bosques y Cambio Climático, de gobiernos y bueno, agradezco nuevamente el apoyo de Sergio Alvarado. Les cedo la palabra.
Okay, Pranab. So basically, Andrea was giving the introduction about yourself in Spanish. I hope that so people can listen to you a bit of all the work that you have been done. And maybe I will start asking you some questions related to. Can you explain us briefly who are you, my friend, Pranab? Creo que ahora Pranab no está en conectado. Hey, Pranab, can you listen to me?
Yeah, I can listen to you now.
Awesome, my friend. So I don't know if you listen my question for you. I wanted to ask you if you can introduce briefly with us about who are you, what are you working, what are you doing, and then I will be translating to Spanish.
Thank you, both of you. And uh, it is really so nice of you to organize this event. And I'm happy to share my greetings from India, where I am now. It is a place close to Myanmar and Bangladesh, northeast of India, deep far northeast of India.
Hmm.
My background is forestry, so I started working
Bueno, no sé si pudieron escuchar un poco lo que Pranab decía, pero Pranab estaba platicando que él se encuentra en Myanmar, en el este de India, cerca de la frontera con China, y él está ahorita, se encuentra localizado en esa parte. Él trabaja en India y él tiene una especialidad en forestry, que es el estudio de los bosques. Sorry, Pranav, I was just translating to Spanish what you told me at
yeah,
the beginning. So then you're in
great.
forestry,
Thank you.
okay. And
Yeah,
so,
okay. So,
mhm, we listen to you.
so, should I switch off my video because the connection is not very good? I think it might help.
Yes, of course. If that's okay, if you think
Yeah.
it's you want to switch it off, it can work.
L- Let me see if it is working. Otherwise, I'll come back. No problem. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So should I continue with the
For sure.
introduction?
Please, we can listen to you.
Yeah. So I worked in India in different states around land use primarily. So land use discipline, including agriculture, forestry, wetlands. So that used to be my work while I was a scientist. Then I left my job and started working in development sector
Mm-hmm.
with NGOs, civil society in 2005. Uh, I'll just continue for one of the two sentences, then we can take over. So till 2015, so almost 20 years of my career, I worked around land use disciplines. And
Mm-hmm.
during that part of career, I worked in India, in
Mm-hmm.
other part of South Asia also.
Uh,
I worked
I am going
organized.
to try. I'm going to translate really briefly in Spanish. ¿Is that okay with you, Pranab? Just to not to
Please,
forget the idea.
please go. Please
Entonces,
go ahead.
Pranab estuvo trabajando con administración de la tierra por más de 20 años y ahorita está trabajando en diversas organizaciones tratando de apoyar en temas de cambio climático y gobernanza en la India. Y es uno de las varios de los trabajos en los que está trabajando actualmente Pranab. Sorry, Pranab, so you can keep tell me.
Yeah. So now coming straight to the work around land, since 2015, we started the
Ujú,
work around land governance. We realized two things, that in most cases the land use disciplines, be it forestry, agriculture, urban, they are not connected to land tenure governance. They are primarily looking at management aspects. They're primarily looking at technological aspects, but not
ujú,
necessarily connected to land tenure governance. And those who are working around land administration, tenure, and governance, they don't talk to each other. So there
ujú,
are lots of divisions, lots of silos, not only within government, but
ujú,
across sectors like NGOs, academician, government, private
ujú.
sector. So with that gap in mind, we started the Center for Land Governance in 2015 in India in an attempt to bridge that gap, to connect actors and to see if land governance can be better connected to larger development discourse around
And
agriculture,
perfect, Pranab. Can I translate a bit
forestry,
what you
urban.
said
Yeah,
in Spanish?
please, please.
Ah, entonces platica Pranab, ¿no? Que él se dedica actualmente a investigar la falta de comunicación entre agricultura, entre la administración de bosques y también en el tema de la conversación de cómo el aspecto urbano interactúa entre lo que es la administración de la tierra, la agricultura y la muestra de los bosques. Y también platica Pranab, ¿no? Que también está trabajando con los diferentes actores que trabajan en este tipo de trabajos, sobre todo en la parte de agricultura, para ver cómo se puede mejorar la tenencia de la tierra en la India. Thank you, Pranab.
Thank you, my friend. So since 2015, Center for Land Governance is trying to work in this sector by connecting different land actors who work
Ujú,
across the sectors. So we do, as a small institution, policy and action research, primarily focus on rural lands, tribal, indigenous community land, forest land, and of late
ujú,
around urban land. We look at issues of land tenure informalities, land administration, land record management, rights of indigenous communities, women, forest dwellers, and
ujú.
we also try to see if those actors working on this sector can be connected through India Land and Development Conference.
I'm going to translate a bit of this, Pranab. Entonces, Pranab está trabajando con estos diferentes actores, se está enfocando particularmente con los habitantes de los bosques, con comunidades indígenas, con tomadores de decisiones del gobierno y con todos los actores que están trabajando en tenencia de la tierra para ver cómo se puede mejorar la administración y el manejo de la tenencia de la tierra. Usualmente, la tenencia de la tierra se trabajaba en base al manejo de cómo se maneja, cómo se administra, cómo se maneja, cómo se ordena la tierra, pero se estaba dejando de lado aspectos de agricultura, de medio ambiente, de bosques, que es lo que está tratando Pranab de investigar, ¿no? Esta relación entre bosques, agricultura, espacio urbano y ciudadanos que trabajan en la tenencia de la tierra. Thank you, Pranab.
Thank you, my friend. We take up this work in partnership with global actors around land sector. We work with World Bank, work with Rights Resource and Right Institute, RRI, Landesa, Land Portal Foundation, Cadastar, to name a few. Even Landac of late, we are trying to partner with them. And also some universities in Europe, in Africa.
Perfect. They will translate a bit
As
this
in India. So
in
our
Spanish.
work is always in a part. Yeah.
Sorry, Pranab. Just to try to not forget your idea. Entonces, Pranab está trabajando actualmente con diferentes organizaciones en Asia, en África, en Europa. Y bueno, en realidad, Pranab y yo nos conocimos a través de Landac, que es la Asociación de Tenencia de la Tierra en Países Bajos, y donde ahí tuvimos la oportunidad de colaborar y trabajar. Thank you, Pranab. Sorry to interrupt you. It's just not to forget the idea that you're saying in Spanish.
No. I think that is very helpful. So this is about the organization. So I can share the organization website and information that we do. We try to contribute to change in policy, change in practice. We are also started capacity building and collaborative research with universities to influence academia. So we work with academia, work with NGOs, work with government, and also trying to work with private sector across these domains.
Ok, entonces, I'm going to translate into Spanish, my friend. Y actualmente Pranab trabaja haciendo desarrollo de capacidades para la tenencia de la tierra, trabaja con organizaciones internacionales y locales, también está trabajando en capacitación con habitantes para mejorar la tenencia de la tierra y generar conciencia sobre la importancia de la relación entre el bosque, la ciudad, la agricultura y pues bueno, todo lo que se va generando a través de la gestión de la administración de la tierra. Muchas. Thank you, Pranab. Sorry, I was replying to you in Spanish, my friend. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes, you can keep telling me if you.
Yeah, I'll stop here introducing the organization, and
Yes.
I want to tell you briefly about India land administration. So India has a long history of land administration. So it even goes back to like before Christ. So if you look at the documentation, so there was like land administration as part of old emperors like Ashoka. So where how the land will be administered, how the tax will be collected, those were there. And even there are attempts to measure land through different manual instruments, including stick. So those were, and many rulers in India, they try to improve land administration because land was the main source of agriculture. Land was the main source of revenue for these emperors, and
Sorry,
this continued. Yeah.
I'm just going to translate this just really briefly. Entonces nos platica Pranab sobre el tema de que en la antigüedad o en la cultura de la India, desde hace millones de años, los diferentes imperios que estuvieron en la India, uno de los elementos más importantes que generaban impuestos o a lo mejor dinero para lo que eran los diferentes imperios de la India era la administración de la tierra. Entonces, desde que lo manejaban con un palito o la forma de organizar o administrar la tierra se hacía desde con un palito en la tierra marcando la distribución de tierra hasta lo que se conoce actualmente como lo que es la administración o tenencia de la tierra que se maneja actualmente, pero ellos llevan manejando o administrando la tierra desde hace muchos siglos. Thank you, Pranab.
Yeah, so in the process of land administration, there are a lot of intermediaries created. Those who will administer land on behalf of the emperors and kings at different level of administrative units. And many a time these people were indirectly owning those lands. When the colonial administration, Britishers came, they almost continued to do that. And till almost no early 1800, the main source of revenue for British Empire from India was land revenue. So they were
Mm-hmm.
focusing more on the land, and they didn't disturb much the intermediary system because that was helping them to collect, land tax easily.
Ujú. Entonces, sorry, I'm going to translate this a bit, Pranab. Entonces, él cuenta que desde que llegó la conquista de los británicos, también, pues los británicos, la forma de donde más tenían ingresos fue a través de la renta de la tierra, ¿no? Entonces, pues es la forma en la que usualmente también, después de que llegó el Imperio Británico, trataba de aprovecharse y generar ingresos, fue sobre las temáticas de la renta de la tierra. Thank you, Pranab.
Britishers also tried to measure the land, survey the land, and create land records because they wanted to have better tax realization. So the whole objective of land administration during colonial period was to enhance the taxation. It was not about to provide land tenure security to the citizens. So primarily they did that. But in spite of that, differ because Britishers mostly continued the older legacy, and because of diversity of India, and India is a huge country, the land administration remained varied across India. So there are all different kind of states. They and the provinces, the kings, they
Ujú.
continue different type of land administration. Though Britishers tried to maximize the tax collection by bringing in land records.
Ujú. Entonces, lo que platica Pranab, ¿no? Es que también la administración de recursos se hacía a través de el manejo eficiente de recolección de la renta de la tierra y eso generaba también ingresos muy altos, ¿no? Y de ahí vino una cultura muy importante de cómo la administración de la tierra se volvió importante para las ciudades en la India, ¿no? Y en general, ¿no? Dependiendo de quién estuviera a cargo o en el poder en esos tiempos. Thank you, Pranab.
So there are major three systems. One was Rayatwari, where the tax collection was directly from the farmer.
Ujú,
Another was Mahalwari, where the tax connection was based on the village. And
ujú,
third was the Jamindari, which is the tax collection for a bigger group of villages. So these three
ujú.
systems were there for tax collection, and land records were developed as per these three systems in different parts of
Entonces,
India.
thank you, my friend. Entonces, Pranab platica que hay tres sistemas de recolección de impuestos para la administración de la tierra. Uno que era el impuesto que se paga por tenencia de la tierra, que todos tenemos aquí en México y en la India. Era un sistema que se manejaba a través de los líderes de diferentes villas. Hubo un tercero, ¿no? Que también era dependiendo de una organización independiente individual de cada comunidad. Entonces son como tres sistemas básicos de recolección de impuestos para el manejo y administración de la tierra en la India. Thank you, Pranab.
Yeah, so there is a breakage, no? Okay. In spite of that, those system of collections, okay, during those, while the tax were collected, tax were primarily collected from agriculture land. So as a result of which, land records of agriculture land was well developed. But
Ujú,
Britishers were not collecting tax from housing land, the place where villagers used to stay. So India is primarily rural. When Britishers were there, very few urban areas. So both urban areas and rural areas where the habitation and housing were there, tax was
ujú.
not collected. Because of that, the whole area inside a village where the people used to say their houses were there, they were just treated as one parcel and not surveyed individually. So most part of India, the housing land were not properly surveyed and records not developed, property records not developed because that was not the source of tax.
That's really interesting. Just let me translate that to Spanish. Un problema muy grande que tenía la India para la recolección de impuestos, que todavía se sigue manejando, o fue una problemática, es que las parcelas estaban divididas no por viviendas, sino era una parcela entera y dentro de la parcela había viviendas, y entonces no hay un registro claro o específico de cómo se recolectaban los impuestos, porque las parcelas eran una parcela grande de tierra y en el interior de la parcela se generaban las viviendas, ¿no? Y obviamente no se medía la cantidad de viviendas, sino se recolectaban impuestos en base a la parcela. Thank you, my friend Pranab.
So while this kind of this land would remain under group tenure, we can call them group tenure because the tenure was as per the group, not individual. Agriculture land was in individual tenure, and forests and the pastures, other lands were under common tenure. So in a particular village landscape, there will be three kind of tenure. Some are group tenure, some are individual tenure, some are a kind of community, communal tenure, open access system or common system. So this is a typical village landscape in India. Those kind of tenure systems were there.
Thank you. Which are the three systems that you mentioned before, right? Or
Yeah, one is
different?
a group tenure system. No, those were on agriculture land. What you're talking about, no farmer-based collection, yeah. But within a village, so this earlier what we call they were across the geography. Like some states were having village-based collection, some states were having, provinces were having farmer-based collection. So that was from primarily agriculture land because agriculture land was taxed. But when you look at a habitation or a village, in a village there are some agriculture land, some land which are housing land under group tenure, agriculture land were under almost individual kind of tenure, and then there are common land like forest land, pasture land, which has communal access, open access, which the villagers want the rule to, yeah.
Perfect. Just translate this. Él mencionaba que los tres sistemas que mencionó anteriormente solo funcionaban para la tenencia de tierras de agricultura, pero para la tenencia de vivienda o el costo de impuesto de vivienda tenían otros tipos de sistemas de recolección de impuestos. Uno era la tenencia de grupo, otro era la tenencia individual y otra la tenencia colectiva, ¿no? O de la villa. Entonces, ese es como se recolectaban impuestos, ya sea para una vivienda individual, para una vivienda en grupo o también para una vivienda a través de la colectiva, ¿no? Que ya sea una área de reserva o a un área que pertenezca a un grupo colectivo de personas. Thank you, Pranab.
Yeah. So apart from that, there are also many places where customary tenure regimes, particularly tribal areas, indigenous communities areas in India, which is in the central part of India and northeastern India, hilly forested areas, just like your Amazons. So there, these customary tenure regimes prevailed, and Britishers also didn't disturb them. They were indigenous communities in India, though they're not called indigenous community, they're called tribal communities. But there, the village chieftainship, what we find in many parts of Africa, where the village chief or village-based land tenure systems given and land records are not surveyed, they continue to be there.
Okay. Entonces platica que hay diferentes sistemas de administración de la tierra, ¿no? Que también radican incluso dentro de los líderes de las comunidades, que ellos tienen una administración independiente, sobre todo en las comunidades indígenas, donde administran independientemente de la forma en que se recolectan impuestos, ya sea para agricultura o para vivienda. Pero bueno, platica que eso depende de la posición donde se encuentren las comunidades en la India, porque India es un país muy grande, entonces cada India tiene sistemas muy diferentes y dependientes, ¿no? Dependiendo de dónde se encuentre. Thank you, Pranab.
So with this long introduction, what I wanted to tell that India has a legal pluralism around land. So many different kind of land laws, many different kind of land customs exist across India. And in India, land is a state subject. So India is a federal republic. Almost 30 plus states are there. So each state has a different land tenure administration. So land is controlled at the state level, while in the customary tenure regimes, it's controlled at the village level. So there is a huge legal pluralism in India, the way land is governed.
Entonces platica Pranab que ahí pues la India es como es un reinado muy grande donde tienen varias provincias y estados y municipios, ¿no? Entonces él platica que es tan grande el país que cada país administra de manera independiente la forma en cómo administra la tierra, ¿no? Ya tienen sus propias leyes, sus propias normativas, sus propias reglas y es la forma en la que pues es muy difícil, ¿no? Poder tratar de tener una gobernanza pues a nivel país, ¿no? Porque es tan grande que se maneja de manera independiente. Y obviamente las escalas hay, pues bueno, a nivel una villa, a nivel un pueblo, a nivel municipio, ciudad, etcétera. Pues bueno, cada también se manejan con costumbres diferentes e independientes la forma en que administran la tierra, which is very interesting, Pranav, the way that it's you are managing land tenure in India. I mean, I think the biggest problem is that it's too big, right? It's extremely huge, the country. So, as you said, like every region, every city, etc., they have also their own regulations, normativities, etc., right? So, it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So one reality, I'm now trying to describe the complexities. One complexity is legal pluralism that we discussed. Second complexity is that, what is the reality? Lots of informalities. So because land was not surveyed in the common land, not in the customary land, and as well as the group tenure of the housing land. So most of the land, these land remain as informal tenure, local tenures, as well as the land where records were created, because records could not be updated regularly because of many reasons, transaction cost, inertia of the people. So as a result of which, informality is the rule in India rather than exception.
Ok, entonces platica también que la informalidad en la forma en la que se administra la tierra también es un problema, ¿no? Que es la informalidad de cómo se maneja la administración de la tierra es una regla y no es una opción. Maneja también, ¿no? Que dice que obviamente pues es tan grande el país que la forma en la cómo se percibe la informalidad es uno de los elementos en cómo también se mide la administración de la tierra, ¿no? Que pues bueno, ya es parte de la informalidad, es parte de la cultura de la India. Thank you, my friend.
Along with pluralism and informality, we also see that across the formal land and informal land, the rights of women, rights of indigenous communities, rights of tenants, and rights of Dalits. Dalits are the lower caste communities in India because India is a caste society. Even rights of Muslims. So many communities, many caste-based communities, many ethnic communities, women across formal land and informal land, their rights are marginalized, and the Gini coefficient of land distribution is high. So rich people own more land, and so this is another reality in India.
Entonces platica un poquito Pranab que también hay unas problemáticas de cómo se administra la tierra. En la India hay una prioridad en la forma como se organiza la sociedad a través de castas. Las castas es como una forma de cómo se organiza pues la sociedad de la India, pero también la forma en cómo se distribuye las parcelas o la propiedad de la tierra depende también de el núcleo familiar. Las mujeres también tienen cierta marginalidad de cómo se accede a la tierra, entonces él platica, ¿no? Que hay cierta marginación y cierto abandono en cómo se distribuye la tierra de manera equitativa por el sistema de castas, ¿no? Que algunas castas tienen mayor poder que otras y obviamente en la forma en cómo se distribuye de manera equitativa pues la forma de la distribución de la tierra. Thank you, Pranab.
So I'll have two more sessions, then we'll open for questions.
Of
So
course.
the second one, the last but one is that in spite of all these complexities and realities, the legal reforms around land in India has been very progressive. So the land reform for land distribution, decentralization of land administration, reforms around that, reforms around forest rights, reforms around providing women their inheritance right, reforms around how fair and just compensation will be given when land are acquired. So India has been leading many part of the global south. So land in terms of legal reforms, I think across the spectrum, be it land for tenants, land for women, land for tribal forest dwellers, land for displaced people. Across all these things, a lot of reforms have been carried out by the Parliament of India as well as states.
Entonces platica Pranab que también las leyes, las normas y la legislación para apoyar nuevas reformas más modernas y más actuales ha sido bastante progresiva. Actualmente se encuentran nuevas leyes que hablan o mencionan la forma equitativa de distribución de la tierra de manera igualitaria entre comunidades indígenas, entre personas que tienen parcelas de manera de uso agricultura. También platica también Pranab que tienen reglamentación o leyes donde antes no se le permitía a una mujer heredar tierra porque era mujer, ahora se le permite que se le pueda heredar la tierra también, y también hay un poco como la distribución equitativa y la forma en cómo se puede, cuando se adquiere una propiedad o una tierra, que el pago sea también justo, ¿no? Entonces son algunas de las leyes que están un poco más avanzadas en temas de legislación de la administración de la tierra en la India. Thank you, Pranav.
However, the implementation of these reforms have not been very efficient. Many reasons are there. The resources are poor. The departmental capacity are less. There is a society which is more elitistic, power influenced, patriarchal. So the implementation of reforms have not been very good because of social, political, resource
It's
constraints. Those reasons
It's
are there. Yeah.
you're basically mentioning Mexico as well, so don't worry, it's the same thing happened here, so exactly the same thing. Entonces, sorry, I'm going to translate what you say. Entonces, Pranab también dice, ¿no? Que aunque haya muchas leyes, muchas legislaciones, en la práctica no se ve hecho en la realidad, ¿no? Porque hay mucha corrupción, hay mucho elitismo en la sociedad, gente con mucho poder económico, gente muy pobre, y también muchas decisiones políticas que hacen que las normas y las legislaciones no se lleven a cabo como se menciona, ¿no? Sino siempre el tema, lo mismo que pasa en México, ¿no? Que hay temas de corrupción que a veces no ayudan a que las cosas se generen de la mejor manera. Thank you so much, Prana, for this introduction, for this talk, for this interesting description in a few words about what is the situation
And
in India. Please tell me,
I'll
Prana.
just, yeah, the last, this last episode is about urban land because I believe all of you are urban planners. So in
Mm-hmm,
India, urban land, there is no urban land per se. All
mm-hmm,
land records are either rural or land records. So there is
mm,
only couple of states have tried to separate urban land records. In India,
mm-hmm,
30% population lives in urban India now. So
mm-hmm,
urbanization is spreading very, very fast, but urbanization happening on rural lands, on rural land records. So
mm-hmm,
if you look at urban governance, they look at urban property. So urban property means houses are taxed by the municipalities. Land
mm-hmm,
continue to be controlled under the old land administration. And the
mm.
main challenge is that the planners and the urban developers, they are
Mm-hmm.
disconnected from land tenure.
Ujú. Okay, okay, that's really interesting. Entonces, Pranat platica que la forma en la cómo se administra la tierra en la India es que no hay una área urbana, o es es una área rural o es una área que pertenece a la nación, pero no existe tal cual una área urbana. Y entonces es un tema que se está discutiendo porque los municipios cobran impuestos en las viviendas en una área donde obviamente para nosotros sería un área urbana, pero donde está una concentración urbana sigue perteneciendo al área rural en el antiguo sistema de administración de la tierra. Entonces hay un problema de desconexión de lo que es la administración de la tierra y la administración de impuestos en espacios urbanos, ¿no? Entonces hay una diferencia muy grande. Por ejemplo, una ciudad se encuentra desarrollada en lo que fue una área urbana. Entonces, como que hay una separación todavía en lo que era la antigua administración de la tierra y lo que pasa en una ciudad actual, ¿no? Entonces, that's extremely interesting, right? Because, I mean, as you say, that it can be a house that belongs to a urban area, but in the reality, it can be like just a rural piece of land in the system, right? In the Indian system, is what I understand, that there is this gap and it's not very well connected.
Yeah, yeah. Just to explain a little bit more. So
Mm-hmm,
urban, a city develops on two kind of land, formal land and informal land. Because I
mm-hmm,
talked that a lot of informal lands are there, common land, group tenure. So the
mm-hmm,
informal land where most of the slums get developed. Slums
Okay.
come up in informal land because the land is not, and the common land where the land is not very clearly, the ownership is not defined. In the formal land, because it is a rural history, so the land parcels, the area of land parcels will be bigger, like the agricultural land parcels, and so the area extent is bigger, the use is agriculture, and the owners are different. So this is land use, land extent, and the ownership are different. On this, you are developing a urban plotting system where the extent will be, a parcel will be, urban plot will be rectangular or square, whereas the rural plot is polygons. And
Yeah,
then
okay.
rural land use is agriculture. So because this is a transition taking place, and now it is housing. So there are a lot of laws which will require to be followed for change of land use. Then the owners, in one parcel of land, there was one owner now. Now in urban, there will be multiple owners. So it is a challenge to update the land records and align the legal system around that. So
Of course.
as a result of which, both on formal land and informal land, the urbanization has been pretty challenging for the
Yeah.
planners and for the people, for the financiers who put money into that. They don't have clarity where to put money and whether the mortgage will come back. So that is a challenge
Yes.
around urbanization in
Of
India.
of course, because there is a lot of gaps, a lot of layers about the formal and informal land. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to translate this extremely briefly. Entonces, platica Pranab que en el sistema de administración de la tierra en ciudades hay la tierra formal y la tierra informal. La tierra formal es la tierra que se había planeado para hacer desarrollo de vivienda y la informal es donde se encuentran actualmente desarrollando lo que es la vivienda informal, tal cual, ¿no? Los barrios, estos barrios periféricos, etcétera. Entonces, dice que actualmente están tratando de hacer una organización porque hay diferentes capas, ¿no? Donde la tierra formal incluye áreas de agricultura, áreas de vivienda, áreas industriales, pero como ya se sobrepasó, no se sabe a quién se le tiene que pagar impuestos porque hay como diferentes capas, ¿no? Una persona puede estar en una área de agricultura, pero es una vivienda, entonces no sabe si tiene que pagar impuestos a una dependencia de agricultura o a impuestos al área de catastral, porque como que no se tiene definido bien a quién se le tiene que pagar impuestos, y eso ha sido un reto de los más grandes que han tenido los urbanistas en la India. That's extremely interesting, Pranav. Thank you so much. This a
I'll
brief.
stop. I'll stop now. Take questions.
No, yes, of course. I mean, it's extremely complex, the situation in India, but really interesting, the new progressive laws that you are having. But of course, you're suffering the same issues as us, that corruption and political issues, and the things related to inequality. The same thing that happened in India, happening in Mexico, but perhaps with a bit more of complexity. Perhaps because you have
No, I
more
think
an ancient culture.
no. This is very important. That is why the South-South exchange is pretty critical. What
Mm-hmm.
I believe is that, because of colonial past and also the
Mm-hmm.
extension of that into research, we have been most influenced by a North-South connection. So
Mm-hmm.
the North-South has worked to some extent, but not worked in many extent. So
Mm-hmm.
we must initiate something. We learn from Mexico. Mexico learned from India. India learned from Tanzania. Tanzania learned from
Mm-hmm.
India. So we need a kind of South-South exchange because our systems, our cultural ethos, our customary norms in global South is
Mm-hmm.
quite similar. Because
Uh,
North has developed in a different way. Yeah.
Thank you, Pranab. Entonces, lo que platica Pranab es que dice que nosotros, y en general es verdad, tenemos una cultura de administración de la tierra que viene de países del norte, ¿no? Que ha sido, por ejemplo, Estados Unidos, Europa, etcétera, ¿no? Y por el tema del colonialismo que sufrimos los países del sur. Entonces, lo que él platica es que se debería hacer una conformación de aprendizaje de los países del sur, que puede ser México, la India, Tanzania, ¿no? Y cómo estos diferentes países han sobrellevado la forma en la que mejoran o administran su tierra, obviamente siguiendo cómo se han resuelto desde la perspectiva del sur del mundo, ¿no? Y no siempre tomando en consideración lo que aprendemos de otros países más desarrollados en el norte del mundo. That's a really good advice and a good I will say like a phrase to keep thinking to everyone, right? How to try to make that countries from the global south to work together and try to solve issues from the perspective of the global south. And, because of course, like you in India or like here in Mexico, we suffer from the colonialism of of these countries that we adopt a lot of their systems, right? So that's I'm totally agree. Thank you so much, Pranab. So now I'm just going to go to the questions, but for that part, I need to ask to Andrea because she's the one that is taking care of the administrative parts. So one second, Pranab. Andy, no sé si me escuchas, pero ¿hay alguna pregunta? ¿Hay alguna sugerencia? ¿Hay algo? Creo que sí está conectada. Ah, sí está. Estás en mute, creo, Andy. Creo que no nos escuchas, ¿verdad, Andy? Estás en mute, no te podemos escuchar. ¿No estás en mute? Ah, bueno, es que no te oímos. Pero bueno, si quieres, me puedes explicar o escribir en el chat. ¿Por qué no te oímos nada? Te vemos, te podemos oír, estamos viendo que estás hablando, pero no escuchamos nada. So now she has issues with the sound.
Yeah.
So she's saying a lot of
Yeah.
things, but I don't know what she's saying. So I will, if you can put it into the chat, Andy, please let us know. Si lo puedes poner en el chat. Porque no te oímos ahora. Bueno. Perfect. So she's going to type it into the chat because, now we cannot listen to her. But yeah, okay, well, I have one of the questions, Pranab, that first of all is when are you going to come to Mexico? That's the first question.
2023 for sure, but when, I think we have to work out.
I mean, that will be really interesting to have you here in Mexico, right? To try to explain us more about what are you working with your association, with your, yes, it's an association. I will say it's like NGO or it's like a company.
My organization is a company, but I work
It's a
across
company.
with, but I work with NGOs, with academicians, government. So and we have a big network. This India Land and Development Conference, we have more than 50 partners in India. So we work together around land issues.
Awesome. No, I think it will be really interesting to try to have you because there is a lot of government institutions that they are working on land tenure, land governance, land administration in Mexico. But of course, there is a lot of issues that we have because, as is happening in all the parts of the world, the people is moving to cities, right? And agriculture and land, you will say that agriculture land is getting lost because people start selling, they are getting more profit selling the land for housing than for agriculture, right? So, and it's getting a big issue. And the regulations are not that strong. So that's why we have big companies buying a lot of pieces of land, and then instead of having a parcel to grow avocado or some kind of vegetal, etc. Now we are seeing that we are having housing developments with people that is not living there because it's really far from the city. So, this kind of issues.
I think same kind of thing also in India. So post land reform in 1960s, so every state had a restriction of conversion of agriculture land to non-agriculture purposes. So agriculture land where a lot of regulation to be converted for housing or other uses. But post 90 and I think in post 2000, we are finding a lot of dilutions of these laws. Like many states have that you cannot convert agriculture land to non-agriculture. A non-farmer cannot purchase agriculture land. When you go for agriculture land conversion, you have to pay a steep fee and proof that it is necessary, barely necessary. But things are changing now. As you told, still the conversions are taking pretty fast in peri-urban areas, but in the rural areas, conversions are not much. But it has increased. The conversion of agriculture land to non-agriculture purposes have been one issue in India.
Sorry, I'm going to first translate what you said, and then I will ask you two questions that people is asking. La primera, well, Pranab platicaba un poco que después de los 90 se hizo este cambio en la forma en cómo se administraba la tierra en la India y hubo unos reglamentos y normas que se fueron diluyendo que permitían que se vendiera propiedad de tierra de agricultura o tierra que no era necesariamente para la agricultura, pero de reserva, que se vendiera a empresas privadas para desarrollos, ¿no? Entonces, similar lo que pasó en México, ¿no? Que también se vino este boom de cambio de quién administraba y cómo se organizaba la tierra y los permisos que se le daba a privados para mejorar, para desarrollar vivienda habitacional. Pero pasó en la India en los 90 y aquí fue a finales de los 90, principios del 2000. My friend, I will go to one question. So first of all, they were asking me if, I mean, in Mexico, just to try to give you a bit of the context. So if you want to own land or expropriate land, there is this kind of communal group of people that they just decide if they can expropriate the land or not.
Can you please repeat that? Can you please
yes,
repeat?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. There is like this. If, for example, if you want to expropriate a piece of land, if you want to get a piece of land, there is a group of people that administrate the land. That is, we call it ejidos. That it's this group of people that they are managing the land in agriculture land, right? And these groups represent the interests of the people of this specific piece of land. So one of the questions, like, who represent the land in India? There is a group of local people that represent the land, like a community group, or there is like a village group of people that manage the land, or for example, the government, they just can't take advantage and just appropriate a piece of land because they have the power to do that. So how it works in India? Or yeah.
Yeah. Earlier, no. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are you able to hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. I think there is a small delay.
Hello. Okay. Okay. So till 2013, there was a British law which was deciding the way land will be acquired or expropriated in India. Eminent domain principle was used, but still, while land was acquired, there were certain conditions that compensation will be given. Land, and the land should be acquired for public purpose, not for private purpose. It was there, but still there was a lot of misuse of that law, and it was known as a draconian law for land acquisition. But since 2013 to 2013, a new law has come up which is called fair and just compensation and resettlement and rehabilitation law, where now the new provisions which bring in like there should be 80% of the people in the village where the land is acquired should agree to the land acquisition. Otherwise, land cannot be acquired. Before the land is acquired, there will be social, ecological, assessment of the land. Whether this acquisition of land, the way commons are acquired, is affecting the people. And third is that the compensation will be very high, and prime agriculture land will not be acquired. So there are many clauses of this new law which makes acquisition very difficult for industry, and and take the expropriation in favor of the community. So, but the challenge is, since the the enactment of this law, because this law was enacted by the government of India, central government, but land is a state subject. So every state are trying to amend this law to favor industry, because every state is competing for foreign direct investment. So that is a challenge there.
Thank you so much, Pranab. I will translate into Spanish. Entonces, platica Pranab un poco que la forma en que se administraba, había una ley desde pues bueno, desde que estuvieron los británicos en la India, ¿no? Como cuando estuvieron con ellos ahí mm, tratando de estar manejando al país, se manejaba una ley donde obviamente el gobierno era quien administraba la tierra y eso generó muchos problemas. Después, en el 2013, se vino una ley que era como una ley más justa de administración de la tierra, donde trataban de darle más poder a la gente y donde se trataba de que la tierra, cuando se cambiaba el uso de suelo, fuera de, o se apropiara la tierra para otro tipo de uso, fuera el pago fuera justo y se pudiera compensar a las personas y obviamente también el costo fuera muy alto, ¿no? Pero esto fue a nivel federal, a nivel del país de la India. El problema fue que las provincias o los estados están manejando esta ley para cambiarla y favorecer a la industria privada, ¿no? Para que obviamente la industria tenga mayor favor para cambiar la tierra, haya mayor inversión pues bueno, en industria y obviamente favorecer que los precios sean más baratos y no se dé la compensación que se requiere para las personas que son dueñas de la propiedad de la tierra. That's extremely interesting, Pranav. Thank you so much. And
I'll
one of the
just
yes,
add to that. Yeah. Can I just add two lines to this?
yes, please.
So there are two extremes now. So
Mhm,
land, because of this land acquisition, India is facing a lot of land conflicts.
mhm,
So even many investment, there are estimates that almost 15% of the investment that is coming to greenfield industries are stuck because of the land conflict. So land conflicts, because people are not taking, the government is not taking care to address these issues, are huge. That is number one. Number two, there is a very interesting case because now the villages, the decentralized village institutions will decide whether the land will be acquired or not, and particularly more so in case of tribal and indigenous communities. So
mhm,
there was
mhm,
a big case where a global aluminum major, bauxite major Vedanta, while they were trying to acquire small lands of some tribal indigenous communities, small villages, 10,
mhm,
12 household villagers. So they told no, we don't want our land to go to industry. And the big company had to go back. This is
mhm.
only one case, but these cases show that decentralized village level institutions in indigenous community area can say no to industry and industry can go back.
Mhm. That's interesting. Él platica un poquito, ¿no? Que también hay un problemas que estas nuevas legislaciones de adquisición de la tierra ha generado problemas y uno de ellos, uno importante es los habitantes locales o comunidades indígenas que también están tratando de proteger la propiedad de ellos. Pues obviamente pone el ejemplo de una comunidad donde tenían unos minerales que eran bastante importantes para la industria. Entonces la institución privada trató de manejar y trató de apropiarse de esa tierra para aprovechar el recurso mineral que ellos tenían. Sin embargo, obviamente, como se le dio cierta independencia y hubo una descentralización de la forma en la que se administra la tierra en la India, o al menos es lo que se está promoviendo, ayudó a que esta comunidad protegiera su propiedad y sus terrenos para que la industria se retractara, se fuera para atrás y no se aprovechara de los recursos. Entonces, así como hay muchas broncas, también dice que hay algunos aspectos de comunidades organizadas que tratan de proteger sus tierras. Thank you so much, Pranav. That's amazing. I have another brief question that it was just from another person that well, and you clarified right now, in fact, to be honest, because the question was related to like if the government or the population, the same communities, are the ones that establish how the properties are going to be, managed. But you already explained a bit that, so that's I think you explained the two questions in your response, my friend. Thank you so much. And I think that, sorry, I am going to switch into Spanish, Pranab, just for a briefly second. Andy, ¿es alguna pregunta o son todas con estas que me mandaste? Ah, no te oímos, pero me puedes escribir en el chat. Así de, son todas las preguntas. ¿Sí? Vientos. Okay, perfect. She, as you can see her, right, man? That we cannot listen to her. I think for the moment is all the questions. I wanted to ask you something, Pranab, that the conversation is going to be shared on social media. So usually what happens is that other people take a look later during the day about the presentation. Usually what happens is that if there is more questions, Andrea or I, we will share the questions to you. So maybe in another time you can keep, telling us more about how can you, the response of this question that people is asking to you. And the second thing that Andrea is not able to say to you, but she is asking you to please come back more in another time with maybe more information, more punctual about what are you working or what are you having in specific. So we will more than glad to see what are you working in India. Or at some point, please invite you to come here to Mexico, my friend. So I think we will appreciate a lot your help here. Um, but in the meantime, I think that something else, Andrea, algo más que le quieras platicar. Estoy haciendo la despedida de tu parte, porque no puedes hablar, no te oímos. Pero ¿hay algo más que quieras decirme, que le puedas decir al Pranab por el chat? ¿O concluimos ya la sesión? Ujú. Okay, so Pranab, in the case of Andrea, that she's saying that I'm just asking if there is something else that maybe we are missing that we want to discuss, but she's texting me right now to tell you that she is apologizing that she cannot, she cannot tell you in person because it doesn't work the microphone. Um, that thank you so much for your participation for today, that she's more than happy to know you, to have you in this small discussion. It's really brief, but it's very interesting for us because we know very little about the context of other parts of the world. And in India, for example, it's amazing to know or to listen to you and relate all the similar things, all the similar problems, all the similar issues that we share, right? And as you said, it could be nice to try to maybe organize together and collaborate in the global south perspective to solve issues with you or with other countries that are facing the same issues. Also, she said that thank you so much for your participation and that she will give you certificate of participation later. So maybe I will ask you later for your for your email. I will say into Spanish that estamos diciendo gracias a Pranab, gracias por su participación. Para los que se conectaron a la plática, hay una disculpa por los problemas técnicos, hay la falla del internet. Andrea se disculpa porque no sirve su audio y obviamente Pranab también se despide. Pranab, some words for someone here in Mexico, please. You have any words?
Yeah, thank you so much for bearing with me with my language, with poor connection. I'm so happy that we could share something. And I did prepare a presentation because I thought an informal conversation will be good. I hope I could give you some idea about India. India is too big. In half an hour, talking about India is a very futile exercise. But I think some idea about India is good. Before I close, let me invite you all to this India Land and Development Conference that we are organizing in a hybrid mode during December 7 to 9. I'll send an invite to Shario to share with all of you. This is hybrid mode. The timing is a little odd, but you can listen to many of the sessions. We'll be having about 30 sessions about India, all aspects, urban land, land expropriation, rural land, land records, forest land, land and climate change, land and SDG. And the theme of this conference is South-South cooperation, the global pool on local land. So we all know that globally, different pools like net zero, sustainable development goal, they're all trying to change the way we use our land and the land tenure. So this is a challenge, and this conference is discussing about that. I'll also request you, if you can think about organizing a session to share about Mexican work with us. So we can do that at a time which is suitable to you, and we'll record it. It can be online. So that's going to be, I'm discussing with different institutions in Brazil, in Colombia, also with the Lincoln Land Policy Institutes. So this year the focus is South America, to learn from South America. So though Mexico is Mexico is not in South America, but I think Mexico has to offer a lot to us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. So I don't know if I will translate really briefly to everyone. Pranab nos está invitando a una conferencia que se va a hacer sobre tenencia de la tierra del 7 al 9 de diciembre. It's from the 7th to the 9th of December, the Conference of Land Tenure, right? Y nos platica que él va a estar participando y que nos invita a todos al CUDAEP, a todos los urbanistas, a que participen. Está abierta la convocatoria para que puedan participar. Es una conferencia, according to what I saw in your invitation, I don't know if this is the same that you shared me previously, Pranab, but is the ILDC 2022, the India Land and Development Conference, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Pranab me envió la convocatoria, se las haré compartir y hace la invitación directa al CUDAEP que si quisieran hacer una participación sobre administración de la tierra, estaría interesado en que se haga o que se pudiera hacer o quien quiera participar, no solo el CUDAEP, si alguien más, para hacer una presentación sobre qué es lo que pasa en México y presentarla junto con otros países como Brasil, Colombia, que están trabajando también en el tema de administración de la tierra. Y pues obviamente la invitación está ahí para ti, Andy, y para quien quiera participar. Y hago, Pranab, my friend, if you don't mind, we will share between the social networks your, the website of the conference. And Andrea, she's texting me because she cannot she cannot talk right now. You know that she will be extremely interested in participate. Thank you for the invitation to make this invitation to perhaps make this small contribution with you, from the Latin American or from the global South Latin American part of the world. That she will be more than happy to keep in touch with you and also the people from the association to try to, enjoy and take advantage of all your knowledge, all your resources, because you are an excellent person. So this is
Thank
what
you so much.
they are saying.
Thank you. In India, we call it namaste. That means thank you, greetings.
Perfect, my friend. Entonces, Pranab está diciendo, se dice muchas gracias, va a tomar en consideración y les dice a todos que namaste en India es muchas gracias por todo. Y namaste, my friend. Awesome.
Namaste.
Okay, so then just don't leave the chat. We are going to end the session for today. Thank you, Andrea. Muchas gracias, Andy, por la invitación por parte del CODAE para la plática con Pranab. Y lástima que no pudiste platicar un poquito hoy, pero bueno, ya se armó. Y pues bueno, ahí estamos en contacto para la próxima plática. ¿Te late? Nos vemos, Andy. Pranab, we're going to close the online streaming. So don't leave the conversation. We're just going to stop the session online. So, adiós y gracias a todas. Tú cierras la sesión, ¿verdad, Andy? Live.